Hello and welcome to Music Monday Interlude with our second installment of interviews with past artistic directors of the Holland Chorale. Today we welcome Gary Bogle. Gary, it's good to have you here today.
Thank you, Jean.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. My first question is, how many years were you the artistic director of the Holland Chorale, and what were those years?
Well, in the summer of 2000, I retired from the Department of Defense schools in Europe. And then 2 weeks later, I became the artistic director of the Holland Chorale. I had 9 wonderful years as the artistic director, and that was from 2000 to 2009.
That is great. And I had the privilege of being to sing under you for many of those years from 2001 until you retired. So that was a really good experience for me. Gary, what were some of the highlights from your tenure with the chorale?
Wow, there were countless highlights through those 9 years. Numerous high points occurred during rehearsals, working with the talented vocal musicians of the chorale. In fact, live music making with live people is a high point, period. When the chorale commissioned compositions, we had composers come and spend a few days with us, and that too was an exhilarating highlight of my time with the chorale. Notably, when Gwyneth Walker came and she wrote I've Known Rivers for us, text by Langston Hughes, and when Stephen Paulos came, he wrote Songs for the Seasons. Those two experiences were really wonderful. I must also admit or mention that the chorale's quality choral concerts, the educational opportunities for the chorale kids, and our fully staged Tulip Time shows were remarkable events. Overall, though, having the opportunity to work with the singers was the joy of my time with the Holland Chorale.
Yes, thank you for bringing back some really great memories. Just for me, just hearing you talk about those highlights. I too enjoyed, especially when you would bring in guest clinicians, guest composers. Those were really great experiences for all of us as singers. So name a favorite choral piece that you did with the Holland Chorale, and why is it your favorite?
Well, over 9 seasons of working with the talented singers and performing really hundreds of choral selections, there were many much loved pieces of choral music. But if I must select one, I will choose The Road Home by Stephen Paulos, with the enchanting text by Michael Dennis Brown. Right before the COVID-19 lockdown last March, I had the opportunity to rehearse this selection with the chorale singers, and that was pure joy for me. Here is the first verse of the Brown text to give you a little idea about this piece. The road home. Tell me, where is the road I call my own, that I left, that I lost so long ago? All these years I've wondered, oh, when will I know? There's a way, there's a road that will lead me home. Stephen Paulos based his a cappella composition on a tune that he took from the Southern Harmony songbook of 1835, and it's a striking arrangement and very satisfying for the singers to perform. Another thing was, I guess another reason this was a popular song for me is my memory of my experience when Stephen was here for that composition that he did many years before.
Yes. And, I love singing that song. I love singing it with you. I loved rehearsing it with you when we were preparing for our anniversary concert. And we also recently did sing that song this past fall when we were getting our recording our fall concert, virtual concert ready to go. It was a joy to sing it, and the memories of preparing it when it was supposed to be done at our anniversary concert. It's just a year now that we had to cancel that anniversary concert, and it's so sad that
Yeah.
we had to do that. Um, so many things have happened this past year during the pandemic, and it's sad. But yeah, we've moved on, and we're continuing to make music, and we'll continue talking a little bit about that more in our interview here. But I first have a couple other questions about your retirement years. What are some of the things that have occupied your time over these recent years?
Well, I retired from the chorale in 2009. So I've now been retired 12 years, which is, for me, a pretty amazing thing to consider. But during those 12 years, the first big project that I tackled was a Rotary International project in Ethiopia, along with a Rotarian partner in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. We planned, financed, and executed the construction of a public bathhouse in Gore, Ethiopia. To help finance this project, I sang several solo vocal recitals from which donations were received to help pay for this over $50,000 bathhouse project. And besides arranging for the needed funds, I traveled Ethiopia twice to help build, or not actually build, but oversee the construction and build a rapport with the people from Gore, Ethiopia. So that was quite a first project after retirement.
That's
Another thing,
definitely.
yeah, another thing that I've done is started watercolor painting more. My wife, Donna, is a watercolor artist, and she's helped me. She's given me lessons, and I've taken a few lessons at the Arts Council. And watercolor painting is one of the things that Donna and I do when we travel. We sit down at some place and we pick up our materials and we paint a scene from our vacation, which helps us really remember those vacations and those trips. Well, trips, that's another thing that's taken up quite a bit of time during our 12 years. And I guess one of the more exciting trips was spending a whole month in Venice. It was just fantastic being there. Um, then we took our daughter and her family to Panama for a COVID-19 interrupted trip. And then with a small bunch of guys, we rode our bicycles from my driveway in Holland, Michigan, to the southernmost point in Louisiana. And I guess I
Wow.
must kind of, yeah, maybe I better qualify that a little bit. We didn't get on our bikes and just go. We got on our bikes and rode 250 miles from Holland to our first stopping point. And then we came home in our car. And then a year later, we started at that stopping point and did another 250 miles. And then the next year, another 250 miles. So it took us 5 years to do it. But we did do the whole trip. It was really a wonderful experience.
Yes, it sounds like it.
Yeah, it was just great. And we also had the opportunity to take our two grandsons separately on international trips. One went to Costa Rica and the other went to Italy. So we had a great time, about 10 days with each boy as we were traveling. It was a wonderful grandmother, granddaddy, grandson time. My most recent endeavor, which I finished right before the COVID-19 lockdown, was writing and researching for the 100-year anniversary of the Rotary International projects that the Holland, Michigan Club has accomplished. Local writer Jack Hyde and I spent most of a year writing this 150-page history book. So that was a lot of fun too.
Hmm. That is a lot of exciting things that you have done in your retirement. It definitely gives me something to aspire to someday in my retirement. So, Gary, how are you and Donna coping during the pandemic this past year?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we were in the Republic of Panama with my daughter's family when the lockdown began. So that trip was cut short, but we managed to get on what we think would maybe have been the last flight from Panama City to Chicago. So we were happy to get back home. And as with the entire population of our country, this has been a very stressful year. But since I didn't have a job that I got laid off of, or I didn't have to find a job, or Donna and I didn't have children in school that we had to figure out how to help, uh, we fared very well during this time. Um, it was not an enjoyable time, as it was not for anyone, but we have fortunately fared well. And during that time, to keep ourselves occupied, we did a lot of watercolor painting. Um, we took frequent bike rides locally, social distanced, of course, and we walked in many of our Ottawa County parks. However, we did certainly miss seeing friends and having dinners and going to concerts and going to theatrical events with friends. So it did have its drawbacks and still does.
Yes, it definitely does. So, Gary, as one of our past artistic directors, what words of encouragement do you have for us as a nonprofit choral organization right now?
Words of encouragement. Well, I would encourage the crowd to continue the creative things that they've been doing during this stressful time. But also, I would stress the importance of public relations and community awareness of the chorale so that when you do start doing public concerts again, and you will, that your audience will be eager to join you and they will be there in the audience filling those seats and buying those tickets, which is an important thing for the existence of choral music organizations. One of the chorale's creative projects that occurred last summer, which we really got to benefit from, we had a small group of chorale members that came to our home and performed for friends and for neighbors in an outdoor setting. Everybody was spaced out maybe I should say everybody was socially distanced to hear the beautiful singing. And this was the first performance that all of these people had heard, first live performance that all these people have heard for months. And so it was very well received by our guests that were here. And we loved it very, very much. Of course, the important thing was this was a fundraiser for the chorale, and a certain amount of money went to the chorale for this to happen. But we were very happy to contribute those dollars.
Yes, and it was really it was great that you had our singers over to do that. It was called Curbside Cabaret, our fundraiser
Yeah.
that we had. And we're looking forward to continuing to provide opportunities for our public, our community to come and hear us and see us. There'll be something else at the end of this coming summer that we're going to do also. But in the meantime, we've been providing online opportunities on our YouTube channel for you to see, and stay tuned for our spring concert, our virtual concert coming up in April. You will all hear more about that real soon. But for now, it's just been a real joy, Gary, to spend some time with you in this interview. And I really appreciate those words of encouragement, because if it's not for all of you who are watching right now, our community who encourages us, who supports us, we wouldn't be who we are, because our chorale, the Holland Chorale, we are a community chorale. We sing.
Exactly.
We sing for you. We sing for the enjoyment of music, to bring the music to you, so all together we can enjoy and be blessed by music in our lives. So thank you, Gary, for all that you've done for the Holland Chorale over the years. We appreciate this interview that you have given with us today.
Well, Gene, thank you very much for having me today. And in conclusion, I would just like to say, continue doing those positive things and take one day at a time, because this pandemic will end eventually. And you again will be singing for live audiences. So thanks very much for all you do.
You're welcome. Thank you.